Welcome to All Up in Your Business podcast with me, your host, Kaylee Bain, and I'm here to tell the stories of people you may not get to hear very often. And today I'm very, very excited to introduce to you Jaime Davis. We've worked a little bit here and there with her podcast, and so I don't want to spoil it all, and I'm going to let her tell her what her business is, what she does, all the things. So hi, Jaime.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm so good. I'm so good. I'm so excited to actually kind of dive into your story because we talk a lot, but it's more you're interviewing guests for your podcast. So tell us a little bit, what's your business? What do you do? The things you have, tell us.
Yeah, so I am a family law attorney in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been practicing family law exclusively for, it'll be 25 years this year. I have been with the same law firm ever since I graduated from law school. Back then it was called Gaylor and Associates, and so we have definitely grown over the years. We are now Gaylor, Hunt, Davis, Taylor, and Gibbs. I'm a board certified family law specialist. I am also a certified parenting coordinator, and I am also a family financial mediator.
You just do all the things. That's awesome. I love that. I come from a real estate world, so I'm very familiar with like real estate attorneys. So I think it's so cool hearing a whole different side of attorneys, just like the family law and all that kind of stuff. Because for those of you who don't know, I work at Walk West. I get to work with Jaime. She's amazing. Her podcast, A Year and a Day, Divorce Without Destruction, amazing. Even if you don't go through, let me back up. I'm very single, also never been divorced, but I find her podcast so cool because it really opens your eyes. You're like, dang, never even thought of that. And I just think it's so interesting. So how long have you had the podcast?
Oh, wow. I started the podcast, I think it was the fall of 2017 is when we released the first couple of episodes. Back then, I was basically a one-man show. I was recording with my little handheld podcast recorder in my son's bedroom because it had the best soundproofing in the house. And so we've definitely come a long way since then, and I am very thankful for the help that I get from Walk West and from you, Kaylee.
Oh, it's so much fun. And I mean, it's cool to see like you know what it takes to kind of do it yourself. It's not the most fun. I mean, doing this alone, it's hard. Like I spend all my time doing it. It's fun, but it's definitely hard. And so let's talk about your book a little bit. When did you wrote the book before the podcast, right?
No, it was actually after. I had figured out that I was getting such wonderful information from the guests that appeared on the show, and I really wanted to put together a resource that could help other folks going through the divorce process that maybe they weren't into podcasts, maybe they couldn't listen to that type of stuff, in their home environment. And so I wanted to have a book where I summarized a lot of those episodes, and I found that it's been a really great resource for folks. When we do initial consultations with people, they usually last about an hour and a half, and that is just not enough time to get somebody's background information, learn about their case and their life, and then to also apply the facts, the law to the facts of their case and to get their questions answered. And so I like having the book because then I can hand them that and say, if you have a follow-up question, might be in the book. If not, of course, you can still reach out to me, but here's another resource you can look at.
So that's so cool. So everyone that uses you as a lawyer, basically, as their attorney, they get the book as kind of like a working with you type thing?
If they want it. Some folks may still be living with their spouse and they're like, I probably shouldn't leave the divorce book laying on the coffee table. And so for them, I keep the copy here, but it's always here if they'd like it.
This is not the coffee table book.
Right.
I can't even imagine you find that. It's like, no.
It's just a little light reading, that's all.
Just light reading. It's fine. Don't think into it at all. Oh, man. So let's back up a little bit. So what got you into being a divorce attorney and working in family law?
So it was nothing I had ever really planned to do. I knew from a pretty young age that I wanted to be an attorney. I'd say probably in elementary school before I even really knew what being an attorney meant, but it was something I thought I wanted to do. And then when I was in high school, I got to shadow the then Wake County District Attorney it was a Wake County Government Day that they did for high school kids. And was fascinated by it. And so I really thought I wanted to do criminal law. And so when I went to Carolina for law school, that's what I went in with, that mindset. I'm going to be a criminal law attorney. And I took one family law class and absolutely fell in love with it. And so I took every other family law class that Carolina had to offer. They offered some like clinics, and you got to do some pro bono work, and you got to practice as a third-year student under the supervision of a licensed attorney. And I loved it. And so I was getting ready to graduate, and I saw an ad in the Lawyers Weekly newspaper, the actual newspaper, folks, like literally the paper newspaper, nothing online, and it was to work at Gaylor and Associates. Carol Gaylor was hiring a new associate attorney, and I interviewed for the job, and I got it, and I've been here ever since.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's awesome. And so you went from criminal to that. That's like such a 180.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, family law really is fascinating. Like, a lot of people think it's just fighting and arguing and, people arguing over custody of their kids, but there's a lot more to it than that. Family law really does touch on so many other areas of the law that you need to know a little bit about corporate law. You need to know a little bit about tax law. You need to know a little bit about real estate. There's just so many, a little bit about criminal law too. Domestic violence comes into play. And so it's just really, it's fascinating. And you get to help people when they are at one of the most difficult points in their life. And I find that to be very, very fulfilling.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. So you probably see people in so many different lights. Like I'm sure you see them angry, happy, sad, anxious, like all the things. Do you partner with any therapists in the area where you're able to like recommend them like to go see people, or do you ever like dive into that ever?
That is a great question. And yes, for almost every single client that walks in my door, I ask them if they have a therapist. And if they don't, I suggest that they see somebody, not because they specifically may need one, but in my experience, everyone going through a separation or a divorce can benefit from talking to a therapist. And quite frankly, talking to your therapist about the emotional side of the divorce is a lot cheaper than talking to your family law attorney about it. And not to mention, while we do some counseling in our role as attorneys, we are not trained psychologists. And so it's certainly better to get help for the emotional side of things from a trained therapist.
100%. I mean, again, being someone that's like not even going through that, having a therapist just for daily things is good. I can't even imagine like, because that's an emotional toll. Like that's a lot. So,
Well, and your family law attorney is going to be asking you to make big decisions that are going to impact the rest of your life potentially. And so you need to be in a really healthy headspace so that you can make those decisions. There are a lot of things I can do for my clients. I can counsel them on the law. I can let them know what I think might happen if their case went to court, but there's certain things I just can't do for them. I can't tell them what custody schedule is best for their children. I can't tell them whether or not to accept a settlement offer. And so I need my client to be in a really good headspace so that they can make good, sound, rational decisions for their future.
is there any questions that you get often, or maybe not often, or just sometimes you get that question where it's just like I don't know what to do. Like really tough questions, and then
I mean, yeah, all the time. Sometimes situations arise and I may not know the answer. It may not be in my wheelhouse, and I may need to get help from another lawyer in another field. And so a lot of times we will refer folks to lawyers who practice in other areas if we are not necessarily the experts in that area. That can sometimes happen with real estate issues. Like there is this thing called a partition action, and it's where you can ask the clerk to partition a piece of jointly held property. I don't do that. I'm not a real estate lawyer, and so I would certainly send my client to talk to a real estate expert if that were the issue. I also get questions sometimes where I find people just have unrealistic expectations, and I think it just comes from from not knowing. And so in those cases, I just try to empower clients with knowledge and let them know how the law might apply to the facts of their case. And it might not be the outcome they want to hear, but I'm not doing my clients a service if I am not honest with them about what could happen if their case proceeded to court.
Yeah, totally get that. Is there any topics that really interest you when it comes to helping people? Like, is there certain cases that like you favor other maybe not favor, but is there any cases when you get them like like you're gonna kill it?
So I think custody cases are especially important because you have these little people that have not asked for the separation or divorce, and we need to all make sure that they do okay through the process. And a lot of times the way that parents conduct themselves during the separation, it impacts the children. And what they say or don't say can be really important. And it's not always intuitive. Simple things like saying, I'm really going to miss you when you go to your dad's. You think you're being sweet and kind, but really your child may think, oh, wow, like mom is going to be sad. I need to protect mom. I shouldn't have fun at dad's house because mom is going to be sad. And so just things like that. I think that how a custody case is handled is very, very important just because the outcome is supposed to be what's in the best interest of the child. And so all of the grown-ups in the room need to be taking the actions that are going to protect the children involved. I also really enjoy cases where the marital estate is more complicated. Perhaps there is a business interest. Business valuations are fascinating, just the work that goes into those by the experts that perform them. And so reading a business valuation and figuring out, did the expert do a good job? Are there ways to attack the value? Is it correct? Did they do everything right? Did they make assumptions that are, well based or not? And so I think those can be really interesting too.
Oh, cool. And I remember one thing when we did your Mythbusters episode. One of my favorite things I like, 'cause I like learning, right? There was one question we went over I thought was just very intriguing because we hear it all the time, and it's we're staying together for the kids.
Yeah.
Can you dive into that? Just because I think that's such like a very interesting topic that we cover, but also I hear that all the time from people I know, from friends I know, just like you hear it all the time. So like, can you just like dissect that myth a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So folks often think they're doing their kids a service by staying together, that being in an intact home is better for the child than having to live in two separate houses. It really does depend, though, for a couple reasons. If the one intact household is full of yelling and tension and two parents that don't get along, that's not great for the child. And you also have to keep in mind that you and your spouse are modeling marriage for your child, and that is what they're learning. They're learning that whatever your relationship dynamic with your partner is correct and healthy, and it may not be. And so if a child can grow up in two separate houses with two happy, healthy parents, that may actually be more beneficial for them. Also, folks tend to think that if they can just get the kids out the door to college, that is the time to separate. And my understanding from psychologists that I've talked to is that separating when the child goes away to college is actually one of the worst times that parents can separate. The child leaves the home, there's an intact family, they go away, they go to school, and they never have that intact home to come back to. And so I think it can lead to feelings of, was my whole childhood just a lie? Were my parents never happy? Were they just waiting for me to go to college? And so, staying together just for the sake of the kids may not be the best course of action.
Thank you. Okay. Because I have people that listen to this, and I know there's some of the ones that have asked this question, or not even asked, just said it, and I'm like, no, it's just no. And so thank you for diving into that. Going back to your podcast a little bit, who are some of your, I don't want to like call it out this way, but like, what are some of your favorite topics to talk about, or like guests you got to talk to? Like, what are some of the ones that you like the most?
So I think some of the more interesting topics have to do with kind of the mental health side of divorce and maybe personality disorders and that sort of thing. I've done a few episodes with experts on narcissism, and I find that to be absolutely fascinating. A lot of folks will come into the office and say, I think my spouse is a narcissist. And, it may be true because narcissism is on, a continuum, right? We're all a little bit narcissistic. The question is how much and how far, and is it still healthy or not? So that's super interesting. I've also done an episode with Joanna Lynn. She is a therapist out of California, and she does a lot of work with epigenetics and how your family of origin actually affects how you are today. That's also really fascinating. I love doing episodes with Michelle Caramonte. She is a therapist here in Raleigh. She and I have talked about lots of different things, from co-parenting to narcissism to you name it. And so all of those mental health type issues I think are really interesting.
I mean, yeah, and also we're kind of like in a time, I don't want to say it's hot, but like people are actually caring about their mental health a
Right.
little bit more.
Yeah.
Obviously, a narcissist doesn't care because they think they're
Nature of the
perfect.
beast.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, you are the one who needs it the most.
Right, absolutely.
It's just wild.
It's like I
And
heard the other day, it's like the perpetrator never seeks therapy. It's always the victim.
110%, yes. Oh my gosh, I could go all day about narcissism,
Yeah.
but it's rough. It is very rough. So, I think I've came close, not getting engaged, but like the thought of marriage at least once or twice, like maybe. And even then, it was like we weren't even together for 2 years. And I'm just like, I still don't know you, and you're giving me real weird vibes. And then it makes me think, I'm like, how do people get engaged after like 6 months? You don't even know them.
Right,
That's the
not at
wild
all.
shit. Like, do you find yourself doing any like divorce cases of people that have only been together like under 2 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say that that's the majority of my practice, but it happens. I think people get married too fast. They don't have the tough conversations before they get married, and they don't pay attention to red flags. Issues come up while they're dating, while they're engaged, and you want to see the best in people, and so you brush it under the rug, but then the issue never resolves itself and may rear its ugly head a year or two later.
Yeah. What would be, I don't know, up to 3 questions of like the tough questions that you would advise people to ask each other?
Well, before you get
Before
married,
getting-
you
before
need to
getting married.
know the other spouse's position on children. Do they want them or not? Understand that their position may change during the marriage, but it might not. And so if they go into the marriage saying, I absolutely do not want children, you need to listen to that and not think that you're going to be able to convince them otherwise. You also need to talk about money, right? Like you're going to have to talk about money while you're married. And so you may as well know before, is your spouse bringing in $200,000 of student loan debt? Are they good with their credit cards or not? Do they have savings? Do they not? All of those sorts of things are really important questions, and you need to make sure that you're on the same financial page. It seems to be that spenders and savers always get married, and so there's always this tension between the spender and the saver about what the budget should be. I think those are the top 2 things that you should really consider. Also, too, if you have children from a previous marriage and you're going into a second marriage, it's even more important to have these discussions and to consider a premarital agreement. A lot of folks don't know, but there are certain inheritance rights that you acquire just by virtue of the fact that you get married. And so you may find yourself in a position of not being able to leave property to your children that you thought was going to go to your children. And your new spouse may be able to challenge your will. He or she may be entitled to what's called an elective share. The percentage depends on how long you've been married. And so, again, have these conversations before the marriage. Consider a prenup if you think it might be right for you. It is a misconception that prenups are just for the wealthy. They're not. Even very regular, everyday, ordinary folks can benefit from a prenup.
Would you suggest a prenup to anyone who owns a business before going in, like getting married?
Absolutely. Businesses present a whole nother set of challenges. Even though the business that you opened before you got married is technically your separate property, if you continue to work in that business during the marriage and the business increases in value due to your efforts, you may be creating a marital component and your spouse may be entitled to half of that increase if you do get separated. So go ahead and spell that out in your prenup. Just business stays mine, any money from the business stays mine, and it can make it cleaner when you separate.
Yeah. And so after you're married, say you start your own business and that all kind of thing, can you get a like after marriage prenup to like protect yourself and your assets?
So that is a very good question. It's not technically called a prenup. It's called a postnup, believe it or not, after the marriage. But yeah, married people can contract with each other. They can determine that certain property will be separate if they separate. The only thing that you really can't do after you're married, if you are still living together, is contract away the right to alimony. If you're going to have an alimony waiver, that needs to be done in a prenup or during a period of separation.
Gotcha. All these little things I've always thought about. I'm like, I have a business, so like, should I? And then like, how do you even approach that with the other person? Like, hey, I got this prenup. Like, because when people hear that, they're like, oh, absolutely not. It freaks people out.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. But I think there is a way to constructively approach the conversation. It's not about taking advantage of each other. It's about putting all the cards on the table and being honest with each other. And prenups can be reciprocal. It's not like you're saying, I want all of my stuff and half of yours too. You're saying, I want to keep my stuff and I want you to keep your stuff, whatever that might be.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like a contract with a business. Like, you're doing it to protect both sides.
Absolutely. And
And
it can actually make the separation easier, right? Like you've already figured out how this is going to work. You're not going to be arguing about that, hopefully, in the event that you do separate.
yeah. Yeah. So going into, I know I asked just a million questions, but all these things intrigue me because these are the things like I think about because I'm not in the dating world right now because I'm not putting myself out there. But when I go to do it, I'm actually dating and I'm like, "W- what do I do? How do I do it? How do I protect myself? Because I've been in a place a while ago where a lot of money was taken from me and I couldn't do anything about it. And long story short, it sucked. So, and I just never want to be in that situation ever again. So, protecting myself after getting married, all the like the prep work for it. Do you ever get people coming to you just to ask about like premarital things, like as a lawyer and like how to like set themselves up for success?
Yeah, I mean, usually those conversations happen in the context of a premarital agreement, especially if it's a client that I've represented before for a first marriage. They've gone through their divorce. They're like, I can't believe I'm thinking about it, but I'm thinking about getting married again. What do I do so we don't have to fight about this if it doesn't work out? And so then we have the prenup discussion and what their goals are. Do they want to create marital property? A lot of people still do. It's not like they're saying, I don't want there to ever be marital property, but they're defining how that marital property is created. And so, yeah, we have those discussions a lot.
Well, that's good to know. So, if anyone that's listening has questions, Jamie can at least guide you or help you. Maybe she could be your lawyer. Okay, so the next big question. What is a hard lesson you've learned along your path of your business?
Wow. I think the hardest lesson is that sometimes, no matter how hard you work and how much you prepare, your client may not be happy with you and the judge may not agree with your position. And so, there's been more than one case where my whole office has just poured its heart and soul into the client's case. We have stayed at work long hours. We've worked on weekends. We've got this case prepared up and down. We know it backwards and forwards. And we get to court and we just don't get the outcome that we thought we were going to get. And, judges are people too, right? And everybody's opinion is, of course, subjective. And maybe the judge just didn't see it the same way that we did. And so that can be really hard. It can also be really hard when your client is extremely upset about something and you want to be there for them, you want to comfort them, but it's important for lawyers to maintain boundaries because for us to be effective and to do a good job, we have to maintain a level of objectivity and we can't get drawn too much into the emotional side of things. We, of course, want the very best for our clients, but we also need to be able to take a step back and to look at the whole picture so that we can give them the best advice and representation possible.
Absolutely. And this just reminded me of another question that we talked about in the Mythbusters episode, which was about cheaters, and the thought of how what was it? It was something along the lines of if you're married and you get cheated on, you get everything? Because that's what
Yeah,
we've
a
all
lot.
heard a million times, right? So,
Yeah, a lot of folks think that, believe it or not, and it's just not the case here in North Carolina. Marital misconduct, adultery is not even really relevant to the property distribution. We have equitable distribution here, which means typically in most cases, property is divided 50-50 or very close to 50-50 between the spouses. And whether or not your spouse had an affair only matters if they committed some sort of economic misconduct, if they were spending money on a boyfriend or girlfriend, or if they were gambling or spending a lot of money on a drug or alcohol addiction or something like that. In those cases, economic misconduct might be relevant. But otherwise, yeah, if your spouse cheated, you do not necessarily get everything.
got it. And then that leads me back to where I should have asked this in the beginning. Where does the name A Year and a Day Divorce Without Destruction come from?
So in North Carolina, you have to be legally separated for a year and a day before you're eligible to file for your divorce. Legally separated means you are living under separate roofs with the intent of at least one of you that the separation be permanent. The year can be really helpful because it's during that time frame that you are trying to work out your custody schedule, your child support, your property distribution. Is anybody going to pay alimony to the other person? And so North Carolina gives you a year to get that stuff done. And if you don't get it done, you just want to make sure that if you choose to file your divorce, you don't have to. A year and a day is not a requirement, but it's the minimum that you have to be separated before you file. You just want to make sure that any claims that you have for equitable distribution or post-separation support and alimony are at least pending with the court before your divorce is final, or you might lose your rights to bring those claims. So that's why the year is really important. A lot of folks don't like it. They think a year is a long time. But I will say that a year is probably about right. Some folks don't even really know for sure that they want to be separated for several months. Sometimes folks get separated and 6 months later they're back together. And so the year is really useful because it gives folks long enough to figure out the financial issues, but also the emotional issues of, is this the right decision for me?
Yeah, and I mean, I have a good friend, and her husband, they were talking about the D word, and they're like, we're thinking about it. And I was like, what? Like, you guys have been together forever. And they're like, yeah. And so they separated for probably 4 or 5 months, and now they've actually came back together and they're working through it. And she's like, I'm so happy that we have this year law type thing. It makes sense, yeah, because I mean, a lot can happen in a year. You can try to work on things in that year. So, as much as I kind of hate it, I'm sure everyone hates it in the moment, but at the same time, it is nice because then it does give you that chance to think about if it's the right decision or not.
Well, and something I say to my clients a lot is that the divorce itself is the most anticlimactic part of the entire process. It is truly just paperwork. Yes, somebody does have to file a lawsuit, but it's not like a lawsuit that you're going to see on TV. It's truly just paperwork. And in most cases, if you have an attorney handling the divorce part for you, you don't even have to go into a courtroom. The attorney is just going to hand up the paperwork to the judge to review to make sure everything is correct. So really, there's only a couple of things that you can't do if you're separated and not divorced. You can't get remarried. We don't want to commit bigamy, so let's not do that. And if it affects your tax filing status, you have to file married filing separate. You can't just file single if you are still technically married. But other than those couple of things, there's really not a whole lot you can't do once you're separated and have a signed separation agreement.
Totally get it. Now going into one of the last questions is, what is a piece of advice you'd give someone wanting to go into business, start their own business? Maybe they want to be a lawyer. What's just a piece of advice you'd give somebody?
So I think you have to be intentional with your marketing, but you also need to find something that you love and do that. So what I mean by that, I started my podcast to be educational. I saw a need out there that folks were not getting accurate information about separation and divorce in North Carolina. And so I really wanted to create a resource to put out there to help educate not only potential clients, but also other professionals who work with divorce attorneys, therapists, financial planners, realtors, mortgage experts, you name it. There's tons of folks that are on your divorce team. And there just seemed to be certain information that was lacking. I kept getting the same questions over and over from folks. And so I was like, I think a podcast might be the way to go. It's a way to get information out to a broad audience. I can talk about anything I want that's divorce related. I can have guests from different fields give me their insight and expertise on these issues. And that's where it started. But from there, it really did become a great marketing tool. And so I always tell folks, if you're thinking about going into your own business, marketing should not be haphazard. It needs to be intentional. But you need to also find something that you love and enjoy and something that can help educate.
Love that because, yep, as a marketing person, yep. A lot of people don't want to spend money on their marketing, and I know it sucks a little bit, but I mean, it does pay off because once you start marketing, then people know you. And social media is the free version of marketing. Like, you don't need to do paid ads. You literally just start posting on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, all the things. It's free. You just need to put it out there. And then you start sharing it. I could go on a whole tangent about that because I teach classes on, like, how to market yourself. And I'm like, it's free, people. It's free. Just gotta do it. Maybe pay for Canva. Oh, it's like $13 a month. Cool. $13 you're paying for. Awesome. Great.
Good investment.
Right. Cheap investment and so worth it. And Canva has templates. If you go to Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever you want to do, just think of ideas. There's so many resources for marketing. And sorry, I'm going on a complete tangent about it, but I'm very passionate about marketing. So.
No, I think that's great.
Yeah. So for anyone who is listening to this, you now know about Jaime Davis. I highly suggest you go listen to one of the upcoming episodes. It's called the Mythbusters episode because she deep dives into a few of the questions that we've asked today, but a whole lot more. And it opened my eyes to a lot because I'm like, I did not know that. And that's so cool. Like, it just gives you something to think about, especially for all my friends out there that are engaged, thinking about things to think about, especially all my business owner friends. Yeah, there's just so much. And Jaime is just like a full knowledge base over here. So, Jaime, how can people find you?
So my website is divorcestough.com. My email address is jdavis@divorcestough.com. I am also on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Jaime H. Davis Attorney is my handle, and I look forward to speaking with you.
Yes, and thank you so much for doing a little pod swap with me. I am very excited for this opportunity. Really cool to kind of talk to you a little bit more one-to-one, where like I get to ask you questions, which I think is really fun. So.
Yes, it's a very uncomfortable position for a lawyer to be the one getting asked the questions, but for you, Kaylee, I'll do it.
I appreciate you. You're the greatest.
Thanks,
and
Kaylee.
Thank you all. Yeah, and thank you all for listening. And go do what you do best. Like, subscribe, follow Jaime's page. Go find her and all the things. I'm going to have it in the show notes. Other than that, you can find us on Patreon, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I also have it LinkedIn, TikTok. I'm everywhere. So just find me. You'll find Jaime. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. And we'll catch you next time.